He is untouchable. In rooms filled with noise and fragile egos, he is the calm center of gravity. Conversations shift when he speaks. Eyes follow when he moves. He does not demand attention. He commands it without asking. He is disciplined in ways most people will never understand. While others sleep, he sharpens himself. While others complain, he builds. Pain does not slow him down. Pressure does not confuse him. Chaos does not break him. It feeds him. They call him intense. They call him cold. They call him dangerous. But what they really mean is this: he does not bend. He has conquered environments that swallow weaker men whole. He has walked through rejection, failure, betrayal, and turned each one into fuel. You will never see him flinch in public, never see him fold under pressure, never see him beg for approval. He wins because he controls himself. He dominates because he understands restraint. Every move is measured, every word intentional, every silence deliberate to the world. He is a force, a beast in motion. And yet, every force, no matter how controlled, eventually meets something it cannot overpower. Power is precise. It is trained. It is sharpened through resistance. But even power has a blind spot. The same discipline that makes him formidable in the world builds walls where softness once lived. The same control that keeps him steady under pressure keeps certain doors locked. Strength built for battle does not automatically translate to strength in intimacy. Out there, he knows the rules: compete, win, adapt, conquer. In here, where emotions are not problems to solve but truths to face, the rules are different. You cannot outwork vulnerability. You cannot out-discipline connection. You cannot dominate what requires surrender. He has mastered environments that reward armor, but armor, no matter how polished, was never designed for closeness. It protects. It shields. It isolates. This is not weakness. It is simply unfinished territory. There are depths he has not explored. Not because he is incapable, but because nothing in his external world demanded it. No opponent forced him to look inward. No battlefield required emotional exposure. Until something does, because eventually, even the strongest structure encounters something it cannot command. And the moment that happens, the dynamic shifts. Not because he becomes smaller, but because someone finally stands where force has no leverage, and that someone is you. You were never built for noise. While others compete for attention, you study energy. While they speak to be heard, you listen to understand. You don't rush to fill silence. You let it breathe. And in that space, you see what most people miss. His dominance is visible. Yours is invisible. He commands rooms with presence. You command them with perception. You notice the micro-expressions, the pauses between words, the tension behind confidence. You feel shifts before they happen. You sense when something is off long before it becomes obvious. That isn't sensitivity, it's awareness. They may have mistaken your quiet for hesitation. They may have labeled your depth as overthinking. But you know the truth. Silence is not your weakness. It is your vantage point. You don't need to overpower a moment to control it. You don't need volume to create impact. You don't need aggression to establish presence. Where he applies pressure, you apply understanding. Where he pushes forward, you look inward. And that difference is not small. It is fundamental. Because when loud dominance meets quiet perception, something shifts beneath the surface. Steel has met many opponents before, but it has rarely met something that does not resist, yet still reshapes everything it touches. Steel is forged in fire. It is rigid, defined, sharp at the edges. It holds its shape no matter the pressure. It cuts through resistance. It stands tall against impact. That is why the world respects it. That is why the world fears it. He is steel, structured, controlled, unbending. But you are water. Water does not announce its strength. It does not clash to prove a point. It does not harden when struck. It adapts. It flows. It studies the shape of what stands before it, and then it moves accordingly. Steel resists. Water reshapes. Steel wins battles in moments. Water wins wars over time. At first glance, steel looks superior. Solid, permanent. Water looks soft, flexible, harmless. But leave water against steel long enough, and the story changes. Water finds the smallest cracks. It seeps into unseen spaces. It applies pressure without aggression. No force, no noise. Just persistence, and slowly, almost invisibly, edges dull, surfaces shift, structures adjust, not because steel was weak, but because it was never built for something that does not fight back. You do not need to overpower him. You do not need to outmatch his intensity. You only need to remain what you are. Because when steel meets water, the strongest force is not the one that strikes. It is the one that endures. And this is no longer just metaphor. This is psychology. There is a moment, small, almost invisible, but everything changes inside it. He tests you the way he tests everyone. A steady gaze, a controlled silence, a subtle withdrawal of warmth. Most people react. They rush to fill the space. They over-explain. They lean forward, desperate to regain balance. You don't. You hold eye contact without challenge. You let silence sit without panic. You don't chase his approval. You don't shrink under his intensity. You don't try to prove your worth. You simply remain. And that's when he feels it. Not defiance, clarity. You're not intimidated. You're not impressed. You're not competing. You are observing. He shifts slightly, just slightly. Because for the first time, his usual pressure finds no leverage. His dominance, which bends others so easily, meets something that does not bend and does not push back. It absorbs. It understands, it sees, and being seen, truly seen, is unfamiliar territory. You're not reacting to the image he projects. You're looking past it, past the posture, past the discipline, past the armor. That is the moment when he realizes he cannot control the narrative in your mind. And that realization unsettles something deeper than intimidation ever could. You don't see a monster. You see the discipline it took to become that controlled. The nights he swallowed emotion because no one made space for it. The pressure he carried alone because weakness was never an option. The scars he never explains. You notice the restraint in his jaw when something touches too close. The way his silence sometimes says more than his words. The precision in his movements. Not just confidence, but containment. And you don't attack it. You don't try to expose him. You don't poke at the cracks to feel powerful. You don't worship the armor either. You're not hypnotized by the image. You simply understand it. You recognize that strength like his wasn't born in comfort. It was built in response, built in survival, built in environments that rewarded toughness and punished vulnerability. That recognition changes the energy, because most people either challenge him or submit to him. You do neither. You meet him, not as a threat, not as a fan, but as someone who sees the man behind the structure and remains steady anyway. And that is where the real shift begins, because awareness is powerful, but controlled awareness, That's something else entirely. Most people think dominance is pressure. It isn't. Dominance is composure. The world reacts to him. It flinches. It adjusts. It performs. People rise or shrink depending on his tone. He is used to being the emotional thermostat in every room. If he goes cold, the air tightens. If he applies heat, people scramble. But you don't change temperature. You stay steady. When he pulls back, you don't chase. When he leans in, you don't lose balance. When he tests the silence, you let it breathe. Your nervous system does not spike in his presence. Your voice does not tremble. Your identity does not bend. That breaks the pattern, because patterns are predictable, and predictable dynamics are easy to control. You are not predictable, not because you play games, not because you manipulate, but because you are anchored. Non-reactivity is not passivity. It is power under control. It is the decision to respond only when it aligns with your truth. It is the refusal to let someone else's intensity dictate your state. That calm steadiness introduces something unfamiliar into his world, uncertainty. For the first time, he cannot measure you through reaction. He cannot calibrate you through pressure. He cannot map your emotional landscape with a simple move. And when a man who has mastered external control feels that shift, something deeper begins to move beneath the surface. He can win arguments without raising his voice. He can walk into hostile environments and leave with respect. He can outwork, outlast, outdiscipline almost anyone who stands in front of him. Strategy is his language. Pressure is his element. In competition, he rarely loses. But there is one arena where conquest does not apply. Authenticity cannot be dominated. Emotional truth does not respond to force. You cannot intimidate someone who has already faced themselves. You cannot overpower someone who is not hiding. You cannot destabilize a person who is aligned internally. He can control out-presence. Your presence does not fight him. It does not submit. It does not try to win. It simply is. Grounded, honest, unfiltered. And that is unfamiliar territory because presence creates a mirror, and mirrors do not attack. They reflect. In your steadiness, he sees what he has mastered and what he has avoided. In your emotional clarity, he feels the difference between strength built for survival and strength built for connection. He can conquer resistance. He cannot conquer truth. And the realization lands quietly but powerfully. The strongest force in the room is not the one applying pressure. It is the one that cannot be moved by it. Now the tension shifts. This is no longer about him trying to measure you. This is about who you are becoming in the process. Let's be clear. This was never about destroying him. It was never about humiliating his strength or proving you could bring him to his knees. That would be ego. That would be noise. And you were never built for noise. Breaking, in its truest form, is not destruction. It is revelation. It is the breaking of illusion. The quiet dismantling of a mask that has been worn for so long it started to feel like skin. It is the interruption of a cycle where strength meant isolation and control meant distance. You did not come into his life to weaken him. You came as contrast, as clarity, as something that does not attack the armor, but makes it unnecessary. When someone no longer needs to defend themselves around you, something softens, not because they are defeated, but because they are safe enough to stop performing. That is what breaks. The performance, the posture, the endless loop of proving. And when that illusion cracks, what stands underneath is not a beast. It is a man. Now the focus shifts. Because this was never truly about changing him. It was about what this dynamic awakens inside you. There was a version of you who would have felt small in his presence. Old you would have mistaken intensity for superiority. You would have measured yourself against his silence and found yourself lacking. When he pulled away, you would have chased. When he tested the distance, you would have tried to close it. Approval felt like oxygen back then. Old you reacted. Every shift in energy felt personal. Every pause felt like rejection. You adjusted yourself to fit the moment. Softer here, louder there. Anything to maintain connection. But that version of you was still learning. New you is different, grounded. You no longer interpret strength as a threat. You don't compete with it. You don't collapse under it. You observe it. You understand it. And you remain rooted in who you are. You don't chase distance. You respect it. You don't beg for clarity. You embody it. Emotional sovereignty means your state is not controlled by someone else's mood. Your worth is not negotiated through attention. Your presence is not altered to secure validation. Your power is not in force. It's in restraint. It's in choosing when to speak and when to stay silent. When to lean in and when to step back. When to give and when to hold your energy close. This is the transformation from reactive to regulated, from intimidated to internally anchored. And this shift is bigger than any dynamic between you and him. It is mastery over yourself. Now the real power begins. Internal control is not passive. It is trained. Anyone can explode. Anyone can react. Anyone can let emotion spill into the room and call it honesty. That takes no discipline. Restraint does. To remain calm when tested is strength. To stay measured when provoked is power. To feel deeply without losing structure requires a nervous system that has been forged through awareness. Emotional intelligence is not softness, it is precision. It is knowing exactly what you feel, why you feel it, and choosing the response that aligns with who you are becoming, not who you used to be. It is the ability to sit with discomfort without trying to escape it through validation, control, or noise. Calm presence is earned. It comes from facing your own shadows first. From confronting your insecurities without projecting them onto others. From taking responsibility for your triggers instead of weaponizing them. This is control in its highest form. Not controlling others, controlling yourself. When you master your internal world, external dynamics lose their grip on you. Intensity no longer intimidates. Silence no longer threatens. Distance no longer destabilizes. You are steady because you built yourself that way, and that steadiness is felt. Now it's time to understand what that makes you in the end. He may dominate the world. He may command rooms, control outcomes, and move through chaos like it was designed for him. He may outwork the competition, outlast the pressure, outthink the opposition. In the external arena, he is built to win. But there is one thing no one defeats: a person who knows who they are. When you are anchored in your identity, you are no longer negotiating your worth. You are no longer bending to be chosen. You are no longer shrinking to avoid conflict or expanding to impress. You simply stand. And that stance cannot be conquered. You didn't break him. You revealed a space where armor is unnecessary. You introduced presence where there used to be performance. You held composure where others would have collapsed. In doing that, you awakened something. Not weakness, not submission. Awareness. And whether he chooses to step into that awareness is his decision. Your power was never dependent on the outcome. Because the real victory is this: you remained whole. You did not lose yourself trying to win someone strong. You did not abandon your depth to match his intensity. You did not trade your peace for proximity. He may be a beast out there, but you are something rarer, unmoved, unshaken, unconquered.